Good evening and welcome to the NDFA's virtual mayoral forum tonight. My name is Joe and I'm here because, first of all, we are happy to say that the viewing that you're about to see will also be available on CAN TV. But CAN TV has this thing about financial appeals. So we're going to do this appeal here on Facebook, but you're not going to see it on CAN TV. But that's okay, because we are here through generosity and help from our members, from candidates, and from people that just think that what we do is valuable. The link that you see underneath the screen right now is to a tip jar at the Act Blue website. And if you like what we do, either virtually or live, please tap that link. Help us out wherever you can, and we will continue to bring these meetings on a monthly basis. We will continue to bring these meetings on a monthly basis as we can. So now my pitch is over and I can assume my role as the stage manager for tonight's proceedings. So let's bring Ray Sanders and Melissa Lindberg on screen and meet some mayoral candidates.
Greetings. This is Ray and Melissa. Welcome to NDFA, Northside Democracy for America, whose mission is to elect progressive, ethically committed Democrats to office at all levels of government. We want to welcome any people that are watching this virtual meeting or in person, well, not so much in person, for the first time. Please make sure NDFA has your email address by signing up on the Google form posted on the comments and Facebook. So that's good. Let's give a shout out to 99 Perspectives. Dan is our technical support guru. Hello, you guys. Melissa, Joe, and Ray will be our hosts, as we kind of said before. Welcome, NDFA board members. Mary, EJ, Kevin, Mary Claire, Joe, Melissa, Robert, and Becky. Now, you become a voting member by attending 3 meetings and 3 activities for endorsed candidates. Please report both kinds of attendance to northsidedfa@gmail.com. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We have a very busy schedule with Jamal Green coming on first as one of the mayoral candidates, then Brandon Johnson at 7:25, Sophia at 7:45, and Cam Buckner at 8:05. Chewy Garcia canceled just a little while ago because he's in Congress.
He has to vote in Congress, so he could not make it tonight.
And couldn't get any of his surrogates together. But hopefully we'll be able to figure out something in the next few days. It will be as the board. So let's bring on Jamal.
Hey. All right, there we go. Hey, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you saw my comment. Just recently had to rush my grandmother to the hospital, but I'm here outside the hospital in the car, and I wanted to still get on and speak to you guys and while they're working on it right now.
So I'm so sorry to hear about your grandmother, and I do hope that they do well by her and find out and help her.
100%.
We are now going to give you 3 minutes to talk about your candidacy and anything you want to bring up for right now.
All right. My name is Jamal Green. I'm a community organizer and entrepreneur who's been fighting on behalf of communities since, I was a young teenager, always on the right side of the truth, morally consistent throughout time, for everyone, no matter if, it was campaign season when I was never, doing none of these things just for votes. But outside of campaign season, I've always been doing the right thing on behalf of all people. And I'm running for mayor because it's time for someone that's connected to the neighborhoods, connected to the grassroots of the communities, connected to the next generation who is looking to bring forth real change and make an impact on the next generation of Chicagoans, instead of more politicians who just want to go to a different seat just to say that they did it. This is a real unique time that we have to really build a movement of all people throughout the city. We have over 70% of people that usually don't vote, and we're going to, increase the voter turnout this election, and we're going to shock the world to show them that not only the youngest candidate ever will be, the youngest, we will have the youngest mayor of a large city ever, but someone who's actually in touch with the people and is going to bring forth a platform that represents all of Chicago. That's where I'm running. That's who I am. A lot of my accomplishments, like making Chase Bank, standing up against them to give back $1 billion to the South and West Sides when they were redlining communities, giving $250,000 when businesses were looted after Lori Lightfoot raised the bridges, being the only organizer in the country to help shut down a Trump rally in the world, the first and the only one that's ever stopped Trump from coming to spew hate in this city. We have a long list of accomplishments and a track record for the people, and I'm excited to bring that backbone of standing up for the working class and everyday people to City Hall.
So, can you talk just a bit about why you're running for mayor and not, say, alderman, or why do you want the mayor stuff, which is a bit of a mess right now? So
It's a big mess, and that's why I want it. I don't think any other candidate in this race is qualified to be in the seat that really is going to make an impact on the next generation of Chicago. We keep playing politics with people's lives when there are young people being killed each and every day in our city. And I'm the one that's helping plan those funerals and helping to put up thousands of dollars of reward money and being there on the ground with those families. When you talk about public safety, we released the most comprehensive and the best public safety plan in this race because I'm actually in touch with the people that matters the most. And at the end of the day, we got to decide, do we want another politician who's going to lie to us and play in our faces for another 4 years? Or do we want someone who's going to make an impact on Chicago like never before? And make Chicago a city where everyone in the world wants to move to and raise a family in. That's the type of leadership that I'm bringing, the type of policies that I'm bringing, and that's why I'm running for the top seat in this city. And I have no political aspirations for anything else. The reality of the situation is I'm not doing this for anything as far as money. I don't need the money. I don't need the clout or anything else. I'm doing this simply because it's time to make an impact, and I want to do my 2 terms and
That
pass it on to the next generation.
sounds great. What would say be your top 5 priorities
Top
once you're
five.
elected as mayor? Sure, we'll give you some room.
I see. I'm like, oh, we'd be all day talking about five. Um,
Well, try and be brief,
try to be brief,
because
right?
people are learning about you, and these,
100%.
yeah. Mhm.
Public safety is obviously number one. I think that is, one of the biggest things that's plaguing our city. And I'm gonna be frank and honest. There is no other candidate in this race that understands these neighborhoods and young people and what's going on these streets, but me, because I'm actually in it and I'm not playing in political seats like everyone else. We move forward a comprehensive plan called EPIC: Economic Prosperity, Prevention, Intervention, and CPD Reform. A plan on our website at gogreenchicago.com that talks about how we're going to bring forth prosperous neighborhoods by backing 10,000 home loans with a mortgage bond, by moving forth a prosperity push pilot in which we would give $1,000 a month to 10,000 families who, meet a certain criteria. Um, uh, um, Making incentives for folks who develop on vacant lots, and we also talk about creating jobs, right? We talk about how we're going to create green jobs and bring forth climate justice. We talk about prevention, with making sure that we're starting to teach kids as young as 3 years old with our universal 3K plan, to make sure that 3-year-old kids can start to learn it early because it'll set them up for a brighter future. Youth intervention department to put young people on the right path. New technology and civic technology to be implemented to bring us into a modern future and city government. Making
So
sure that
education.
Yeah, so education, also a public bank, right? The city of Chicago needs its own bank charter, and we want to create a public bank in the city of Chicago in which we will invest into home loans, invest into small business owners, and all of that profit that comes back from that bank goes right back to city services like underfunded schools or paying down our pension crisis.
Do you think
And
it
and
would be
so yeah,
better for an Illinois public bank or a city of Chicago public bank?
well, that's
Because the
something that we can
state then
definitely talk
could,
about.
you know,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
something that we could definitely talk about and lobby with the state to say, all right, who's best to have it? If they don't want to do it, we'll do it. But
yeah.
we definitely need some form of a public bank. And at the end of the day, if we have a public bank that's transparent, it would be a nine-member board, three elected, three appointed by the mayor, three appointed by city council. So it's fair, in which this board will see the priority of dollars go out, and we'll be able to see every dollar that comes in and where that dollar is going to be invested. And I think that is real key for us to have.
Um, so can you talk about your background and
Mhm.
what your background? Uh, so you know what what do you bring to the table, having not had an elected office before? And we've had some really bad examples lately, both in Illinois and nationally, of people who came into an executive position with no background in politics and
Mhm.
then were terrible people. What do you bring to the table that you think that would
Well,
be effective has your work as a politician at the head of City Hall?
yeah, I think the only real bad example that you're talking about is like Donald Trump. But if we being
Rauner.
honest,
Do you
the
remember Rauner? I remember
Yeah,
Governor
yeah, well,
Rauner.
for sure. But I would definitely say we have more people who had experience in politics who have messed more things up than the than folks who have not been in politics. The reality is, it's not about who's been in politics and who hasn't. It's about the fact that we need someone who's actually in touch with the people. It's the political experience means nothing, right? Especially, if you want to talk about political experience, go ask every candidate in this race what they're doing in the jobs that they have now, right? Not what they're going to do as mayor. Like, what accomplishments have you done to bring some forth tangible change to make people feel safer in these neighborhoods? And the reality is, you won't find any. So my experience ranges not just from the community, but it ranges in every sector, from business. I own several businesses and have helped open many different businesses in every industry, from marketing to a spa to a solar panel company to a transportation company. I have businesses in every sector and helped open up new small businesses throughout the city. I'm also a real estate broker who has developed and helped folks become homeowners and get their first home because I know what ownership does. So when you talk about the type of leader, I'm the only one in this race that can say I've touched every different sector of how to really bring forth policy to change our city, from development, from business, to being in touch with the people, to being a collaborator, to bringing people together, to
Yep.
compromise and making sure that we get things done, and
Sounds
standing
good.
up to those who
Do you,
are against the people.
So can
how would
you
you bring in additional businesses? And then
Yes.
like the public bank, what incentives would you have for like community businesses, small
There
businesses?
you go. Yes, for
Maybe
sure.
give, because that's what generates the jobs.
There you go. We would do many things. And in regards to small businesses, your first business license will be free. We will waive certain fees as well. We would streamline inspections, permitting, and licensing, so it's easier to open up a business. It shouldn't take 30, 60 days, 90 or 120 days to open up a business. You should be able to open up a business in a matter of a month or two, right? We got to make that easier. We're also going to help them with shortages by investing in an apprenticeship program for young people 13 and up, where young people will have a job, be able to get a job opportunity at small businesses throughout the city, and the city will fund that program, which will help young people get skills, and give them a safe place to be at, and then also help those business owners, who are experiencing shortages, and help them with their bottom line. As far as the other things with the public bank and the small businesses, we're going to change the financing model, right? Like it'll be different from going into a bank. Most of these banks are not investing into small business owners in these neighborhoods. 1% of loans are going to these neighborhoods in mortgages. So they're not even investing in small businesses. So this bank would give us the economic engine to really invest in small businesses, in people to create more homeowners, and then we got more stakeholders on
Sounds
our
good.
block and more people who care
Yeah.
about what's going on in
So
the
Melissa,
neighborhoods.
can you talk about what your definition of public safety is? That's a term that's thrown a lot around a lot, but a
Yeah.
lot of people have a lot of different definitions
I,
for what
I ain't,
public
I ain't gonna
safety
say
is.
I ain't gonna say a lot of people have a lot of different definitions. I think I'm one of the only ones in this race and ever who has this definition. And the definition of public safety, in my view, is making sure that each and every person in the city of Chicago, no matter their background or neighborhood, have the opportunity to grow and thrive and become anything that they want to be. And what does that mean? That means that we must invest in neighborhoods to make sure that all of the institutions are properly resourced and invested in, from our schools to community centers to parks, etc. Safe spaces for young people. That means that we need trade and tech hubs and different programs for young people to get involved in, so that they have a pipeline to middle class jobs. That means that our public schools have a proper ratio of counselors to students. That means we have mental health clinics that are changed to be healing houses and wellness centers to tackle mental health holistically, where it's not just psychiatry, but it's yoga, it's boxing, it's karate, it's all these different ways that people can get well and want to come to this facility. We must make sure that everyone has an opportunity to get a middle class job. That means that we put in a moratorium on the amount of fast food restaurants that we're having through our communities, when we can't even build a grocery store. We can't even invest. We're not even investing in healthy food in these neighborhoods, which is why I give away groceries every week in underserved communities. So, we have to address what's really going on, from what people eat, from how people are educated, from the neighborhood that they're walking around in. We got to make this a place where everyone wants to raise a family and have the opportunity to raise a family. That's what public safety means. It does not mean that we invest in police. Police are the support system. And if we invest in communities how they should be and invest in people how they should be, then we won't need as many police and we won't need as big of a police budget. We're going to start decreasing that because the communities will make themselves safe because they'll be more productive.
that makes lots of sense. An important part of coming in and when you're elected is having a good leadership team.
There you go.
Who would you
100%.
bring in? And then second part of that is you have Chicago Public Schools, you have the Park District,
Yep.
you have CTA. How would you interact with your leadership team with those people, with those other
That's a
organizations?
That's a good question. I have my closest cabinet, I'll say, and different departments already appointed for some of the people that we already are looking at, and they're already in other cities doing larger things that came from Chicago, that's not far from Chicago, or they're in the city of Chicago doing the work in these different fields. So I have folks who really understand community development and have done it and the largest scale in this state. We would bring folks from that organization so that we can really look at the quality of life in these neighborhoods and look at how we're going to start developing these neighborhoods, from education to all the different departments. So I don't want to say any names because we are going to have an unveil
Sure.
real soon of some of the people that we're going to have in administration, but they are experts in their field. They are the folks who are doing the work in the communities, and they are also folks who are connected to the communities. When you have an administration of people that is connected to the neighborhoods that need the most work, you will have a city that works way much better. That's one of the things that Lori does not have, is you can't make a call to anybody in administration that's tied to any neighborhood. They're all out of touch, including her,
Okay,
and that's the
I want to
problem.
I want to ask a question from the comments, which has been going fast and furious here.
I'm sure.
Does Chicago have the money to do this investment, or do you
Yeah.
expect the federal government to have a role in it, or how do you find the money to do the investment that you want to do?
Yeah. Oh, I see. Carl Nyberg. Many different things. So we will use our bonding capacity for a lot of this. Actually, Lori Lightfoot is currently using 1.2 billion in social bonds to do some of the things that she thinks is best. We disagree with some of those things in her social bond, but we would use our bonding capacity differently to back home loans, to back small businesses, and back some of the programs like the apprenticeship program for young people. So we would use our bonding capacity differently to invest in some of these programs. So we would borrow it. Secondly, there are plans to put different taxes in place that we already support. I obviously support the Bring Chicago Home Ordinance for real estate transfer tax. Also, support a tax, a LaSalle Street tax. We were to push on that. Also, brought forth a plan to bring forth a tax to put a 1 to 2% tax on luxury vehicles, 75,000 and up, that are sold in the vehicles that are sold in the city of Chicago. So there are many different taxes that I support and would support so that we can bring in new revenue streams. And the public bank is a super important piece as well to bring forth a lot of profit. But we would also use our bonding capacity as the city has always done. But our bonding capacity, when we use it, we're going to invest back into communities so that it can increase our budget, right? Bringing thousands of new homeowners means that we got more sales taxes, more because people are going to businesses, we got more property taxes, etc. We would invest to bring more money back to the city of Chicago.
Okay, I have one last, I think this is possibly the last one. We're somewhere in that range of 1 to 2 questions more.
Understood.
But this is a really, really specific little Chicago question that comes up over and over again when you knock on doors, at least
For sure.
around here, which is rat abatement. Currently, there's a
Yeah.
perception that rat abatement is being used as a political tool.
Mhm.
And some areas get more rat abatement than other areas. What would you do
Yeah.
to make it equitable across the city?
Well, we would definitely look at that fully. I think one of the things that we would do all the way around the board when we go in is that we would audit, everything that's been happening under this administration, and that's probably a lot of the things have been continued under the previous administration as well. And that's one of the things that need to be done, whether financially as well as how business have been done, the jobs that have been given, the contracts have been given, and how things have been operating in City Hall from the mayor's office on down to the other departments, and start to restructure how an equitable plan in every different department, including rat abatement, on how we're going to make sure, that there's equity in how we're serving the people.
Okay, Ray,
Is
do you
it
have fun?
time?
We
Is
have
it
one
time
more
for
question.
the 2-minute happy ending?
No, we have one more
Um,
question. One
Oh my
more.
gosh.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's yours, Ray.
Then let's talk about CTA. How would you
Hey.
improve CTA from where it's at now, from police services just to regular, like safety and people, the perceptions of CTA from the general public?
Yeah. CTA, oh my God, we got a lot of work to do there. We released a plan on our website to make CTA safe, clean, and fast. And some of those policies is making sure we want to bring forth a peacekeepers agency within CTA that's able to go throughout trains to make sure that they're keeping riders safe. We also want to make sure that we add the amount of we want to add more jobs so that when trains get to certain stations, if there is a problem on the train as far as cleanliness, that they're able to address those concerns, add more shifts for cleanliness for trains and as well as those stations. We want to really let me just also say we got to change some of the administration in CTA. That's big. I rode CTA yesterday, and it's really terrible that CTA is being used as a homeless shelter and a mental health clinic. And we got to address those problems in a unique way. And those workers in CTA, they don't feel valued. So a lot of them, a part of the shortage is a lot of the workers, find different ways on why they don't want to. Keep coming to work. They're not happy, right? We want to give them free community college. We want to help them own a home. We want to have a rewards program for them each and every year. We want to make them feel valued because public transit is so important. And then we also want to pilot a program at some point to start subsidizing payments on CTA. And by 2030, transportation should be a right and it should be free. And at the end of the day, we're going to work on making it safe, clean, and
Well,
fast.
Okay.
And then we're going to
I'm
move
going to
towards that.
cut you off now because you have 2 minutes, quick
All right, I
2
got 2
minutes,
minutes.
past 2 minutes to wrap it up and say your last things.
Well, I'll just say thank you so much for having me. We got to really decide what type of leader that we want in this city. It's going to be very unfortunate if the city of Chicago elects someone for another 4 years who's really just playing politics and really don't understand the needs of communities. Go and look at who's actually going into neighborhoods, who's sitting down, who's talking to folks, who's talking to young people, who's seeing what's really going on, and look at the people, how the majority of the people in this race are literally just playing politics and policies so that and connections so that they can try to uplift themselves in this race. We need somebody that is different, that's unique, that's going to be responsive, that's going to be connected to the people, that's going to be in the neighborhoods each and every day, figuring out the concerns, making the right decisions, bringing our city together. This is the campaign that will do so. Go to gogreenchicago.com, help us join our movement and help us create a future that we can all believe in together. And I'm ready to lead this movement.
Great. Thank you so much. We
Thanks.
really appreciate you.
Thank
And
you.
all best wishes to your grandmother. I hope it
Thank
all
you.
turns out very well.
Thank you so much. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you.
Mhm.
There we go. Like,
Okay. So is Brandon ready
Brandon
to go?
here. Let's
And
bring in
let's
Brandon
bring
Johnson,
in Brandon.
Commissioner Johnson.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I'm
Hi,
glad you could make
Brandon.
it. We're going to give you 3 minutes to do a why you want to run for mayor of the city of Chicago, little spiel, and then we'll bring you back in to ask questions.
Well, thank you again, and good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Brandon Johnson. I am proud to serve as the Cook County Commissioner of the 1st District, representing the west side of Chicago and the western suburbs. 4 years ago, we took on an incumbent who was deeply entrenched in the corporatization of the Democratic Party and a grassroots movement with progressive organizations and labor, and having the endorsement of great progressive champions like Bernie Sanders gave me the opportunity to represent this district for 4 years, and I'm happy to be serving a second term now. But really the best job that I've ever had is that of a public school teacher. I started teaching well over 15 years ago in Cabrini Green. And if you know anything about Cabrini Green, it really captures the very essence of the city of Chicago, because it's a place where all of the possibility and promise collides with the brutal reality of inequality. And quite frankly, what that means and what that looks like is that from my students' back windows, they can literally see and hear and smell and practically touch one of the wealthiest communities in the entire city of Chicago. But out of their front windows, they saw bulldozers staring them down, preparing to destroy their public housing. And, you know, that's the type of Chicago, unfortunately, that we have become accustomed with, where we have families waking up every single day in Chicago that are chasing down an economy that's behind them while everything in front of them is crumbling. And that's why I'm running for mayor of Chicago, because I believe it's time for us to finally put an end to this brutal tale of two cities. And it's personal for me. You know, it is. I know many people would argue that you should not take the dynamics politically personally, but my wife and I, we're raising our family on the west side of Chicago and Austin, one of the most dynamic communities, but yet it is one of the more violent neighborhoods in the entire city, where homicides happen, unfortunately,
Yeah.
all too often. And
Definitely the tale of two cities is a totally great point. But let's start kind of at the beginning. Why do you want to be mayor?
it was, as I said, to retire this brutal tale of two cities, because here's what has happened. that as a result of these disinvestments and these failures is that the quality of life that many families, like the families that are neighbors to me, who live on the west side of Chicago, that our quality of life has been harmed. And all of us are impacted by that. And so as disinvestment continues to take place in neighborhoods that my wife and I are raising our children in, and that begins to spill over into other neighborhoods, that none of us are safe, that we all feel a little less hope. We all are experiencing the devastation of the fact that we do not have fully invested neighborhoods, that my leadership as a teacher, as an organizer, fighting with many of you who are streaming and on this call, that my leadership at the county board is well positioned to be a part of something that I don't have to join.
Can you give us what your definition of public safety is for the whole city of Chicago? What does that look like for you?
Okay. Can you all hear me and see me now?
Yep. Yeah. Did you hear my question?
I did not.
Okay, so my question is, can you define public safety, what that means to you and what that means for the entire city of Chicago?
Yeah, what public safety means to me is that when my son rides his bike, he's 15 years old, that I shouldn't have to worry about whether or not he'll make it to his destination without being harmed. You know, public safety to me is, again, I don't believe there's anyone in this race that has more of an incentive for communities to be safe than someone who's raising a family on the west side of Chicago. My wife and I, we have recently changed a window in our children's bedroom from one of the bullets that have come through our home. This is not something that's on the news. This is something that we live with every single day. And so this is why I am proposing
Loosen him.
Let's give him a minute.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here he comes.
It's okay. It looks like there's some internet connections here, challenges, but what works is there's a direct correlation between youth employment and violence reduction. That's why a part of my public safety plan, I've proposed what will be one of the largest youth summer hiring programs that this city has seen in a generation. And my job is to make sure that it goes year round. And so 16 to 24-year-olds, I'm going to make sure that all of the sister agencies that the fifth floor has jurisdiction over, that these sister agencies are hiring young people who are prepared and willing to work. I'm also going to ask businesses to step in to put some skin in the game to make sure that corporations who want to continue to be in the city of Chicago, that they also participate in the development of the city by actually investing in young people. Here's a second thing, the movement that is pushing treatment, not trauma, that ordinance, we can pass that in the first 100 days. The entire movement that's been responsible for that ordinance, that movement has supported me. And so I'm going to do that in the first 100 days. And then the third thing is, I've been a part of the movement that fought the previous administration from closing mental health clinics. I've also been a part of the movement that has pushed this administration who refuses to reopen those mental health clinics. We're going to do that. Public safety means making sure that we are investing in people. If you look at the safest cities in America, and I know what they look like because I represent one of them, Oak Park, Illinois. They have 3 public libraries that are open till 9 o'clock. They have park districts, 2 school districts that are fully funded, access to transportation, housing, and a healthcare system. The safest cities in America have investments in all of those critical areas. That's how we make the city of Chicago safe, by having a mayor like me who's been a part of the movement, advancing our cause to make sure that critical services and public accommodations and the workers who do the work are fully supported and funded. And thank you for that question.
Can you, you've been a commissioner on the county board for a term. Can you describe some of your accomplishments as a Cook County commissioner?
Yeah, thank you. One of the first things that I did as Cook County commissioner, I passed the Just Housing Amendment. And there were folks who were part of that who helped me pass it. The Just Housing Amendment eliminated discrimination against individuals who were formerly incarcerated who were seeking housing. It is now against the law to eliminate opportunities for individuals who are returning citizens. That's one of the first things that I did. The second thing is I was a part of the movement, again, working with my colleague to end the gang database. 75% of the individuals on the gang database were actually, they were Black. The vast majority of them lived in the first district, much like those who are formerly incarcerated. It's why I passed that ordinance right away, because those seeking housing who have been formerly incarcerated, they live in my neighborhood. They're my neighbors. So the third thing that I'm very proud of is the Justice for Black Lives resolution and the budget for Black Lives resolution. I'm the only elected official in the entire state of Illinois, and certainly the only elected official who's running for mayor, who has passed a budget centered around the theme of Black lives and making sure that law enforcement is not responsible administering services like mental health. And so we called for the redirecting of dollars away from jails and incarceration, in which this system has been addicted to. It's been a failed structure. I changed that when I became Cook County Commissioner. As a result of Budget for Black Lives, here's what's come out of it. We have hundreds of millions of dollars that's a part of the equity plan. What came out of the equity plan? We have the largest guaranteed universal basic income in the country. That's a result of my leadership in the Budget for Black Lives. $10 million dedicated to eliminating medical debt, up to $1 billion. Another accomplishment that's a result of my leadership. We also have this pilot program with this dead zone in 95th Street that does not connect to the south suburbs, where we brought Metra and PACE together to provide an incentive and a reduction so that riders who are stuck in that zone at least have less fare. The only reason why it's not fully expanded is because CTA refuses to come to the table. Those are accomplishments that I'm very proud of, and it speaks to the progressive movement that I've been a part of, at least for the last 20 years in this city.
Do you want to, as long as you brought CTA up, do you want to discuss a little bit more about CTA, how you would improvement? You know, there's a fiscal cliff coming in maybe 2 years.
A couple years,
which,
about a $700 million structural deficit. Yeah, absolutely. You know, part of the issue is you need someone who actually has the ability to pass a budget. I've done that. 16 Cook County commissioners that I have to work with, 11 separately elected, constitutionally protected countywide officials, a sheriff, a treasurer, board president. I brought people to the table to pass a $9 billion budget multiple years. And particularly in this last year, was very much committed to making sure, again, that we're not reverting back to some of the same old policies that continue to leave people behind. Transportation is something that I use on a regular basis, at least 3 to 4 times a month, minimally, because I take the train downtown as I'm preparing to, obviously be a part of our board meetings and our committee meetings. But it's also a system that I've relied upon. My children have ridden with me public transportation. My oldest is 15. Unfortunately, we don't have fully funded schools in our neighborhood. So our children are forced to go to schools outside their neighborhood. This system has been unreliable and unsafe. And it's why I've proposed, and we've been a part of this movement for the last 15 years, of the ambassador program to bring that back to help individuals with disabilities to be able to.
Do you have a couple ideas how you would? Do you have a couple ideas?
I think I was getting to that.
How you would balance?
Yes, absolutely. So can I just finish this point first too? Because since you're talking about transportation, you have to make sure that you have a service that is a public accommodation. And listen, there is a reason why this is personal to me, is because, again, as a descendant of slaves, one of the big things that the formerly enslaved called for was public transportation, healthcare, jobs, housing, and education, right? And so we have to make sure that we have an ambassador program that actually can deliver services for individuals who are disabled, to make sure they're supported. We know that the public transportation system has been utilized as a temporary housing or for individuals. So we're going to have mental health frontline responders to make sure that we're providing support for individuals who want it. As far as the budget is concerned, it's not just confined, quite frankly, to CTA. CPS is sitting on up $1 billion right now under the mayor's direction. There's a structural dynamic there that's not sustained. Here's the part that we have to do. Let's just look at the big ideal first, because we're organizers on this call. We've organized together. We fought together for a progressive income tax. Right? Remember Lori Lightfoot, the moment she got sworn in, she said, you can't keep taxing those with means. She says it's not fair. So apparently she believes it's fair for Dr. Willie Wilson to pay the same tax rate as a custodial worker. We don't. But here's the good news. 71% of the people of Chicago said that the tax structure is unfair and it needs to be changed. I actually have relationships in Springfield because I actually helped pass legislation well before I was an elected official. So we do have to go back to Springfield to make sure that we have authority in this city to do what the residents of the city of Chicago have been calling for. The tax burden that continues to rest on middle class, working class families and low income families, it's unsustainable. Here's a second thing that we have to do. The corporate head tax, reinstated. This is something that we can actually pass because we've already had it. Remember, Rahm Emanuel got rid of it. And you know why corporations were not happy with the corporate head tax? They weren't happy with it because they didn't like doing the paperwork. Well, look, I'm a teacher. I can tell you, I don't like doing lesson plans. So I feel you on that. So we can make those quarterly reports available every quarter versus every month. We can generate anywhere from $50 to $100 million by reinstating that. I'm going to declare a TIF surplus. You know why? Because we've been a part of a movement calling for that. I didn't just show up yesterday. These are not ideas that just simply sit in someone's head or someone's calculus. This is the work that I've been a part of. And here's the thing, it's personal. Our family relies upon public transportation. If the workers don't feel safe, if the residents don't feel safe using it, and then you don't have responsible leadership that's committed to making sure that we pay down our debt. The biggest structural challenge that we have right now is that the city of Chicago has been led by individuals, whether it's the previous administration or this current one, where they have a $50,000 budget living off of a $60,000 lifestyle. $600 million alone continues to go in just into our interest rate. The best part about our movement, we've made it very clear how we're going to spend the resources. And guess what? The city of Chicago agrees with our movement. I'm not joining something that I'm already a part of. And so dealing with the structural dynamics that exist up in here is something that I've been committed to.
Okay, I want to ask about the CTA, or CTU, I'm sorry, and public education. I know that you are a CTU member and currently are employed by CTU. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm currently on leave, but yes, I've been an employee since 2011.
So what do you think needs to change in the current CTU contract, and how do you see improvements in public education going forward?
Well, it's a great question. Well, first of all, I'll be, in recent history, the first mayor of the city of Chicago in recent history that actually believes in public education. Let's just get that out right out, let's say that out the gate. And I'm the only person in the race right now who currently has children in Chicago public schools that I'm aware of, right? So I need this system to work. Three things that we can do. First of all, we can expand the sustainable community schools model. Right now, there's 20 of them. The sustainable community schools model is something that we have worked collectively to fight for it. Let's keep in mind, I was a part of the frontline effort calling for and passing an elected representative school board. We were collecting signatures 8 years ago, thousands of them in wards across the city. We forced the General Assembly to do what the people demanded for some time. And I'm happy to be a part of that movement and happy and proud that I was a part of the leadership of that movement. And a part of that was making sure that we have sustainable community schools. Right now we have 20, we need more of them. Here's what that will do. The next mayor of Chicago is going to be a different type of mayor. Someone who is going to work with an elected representative school board. This is unprecedented. So you have city council, you have the Senate, you have the House, you have the school board, district council. You have to be collaborative. And that's the work that I've done. The Sustainable Community Schools model is an opportunity for local school communities to be able to have not just a baseline where schools are fully funded with nurses, social workers, counselors, arts, curriculum that is well-rounded, full wraparound services, but we have called for an additional at least $1 million for schools like Beidler that Rahm Emanuel had on his list to close that we saved. It's a sustainable community school, and now it's a model for the rest of the city. The second thing, you're not going to have to sue my administration because of its failures to implement the special education department, right? It was a part of that movement that called out CPS because they weren't providing and living up to special education demands set by the state of Illinois. So fully funding, making sure that we have a pathway for our teachers' assistants and other individuals who want to go into special education to provide support by funding Grow Your Own to lead for a pathway for more support for individuals who have special needs and special education. Here's the third thing. We're going to actually implement the model that the movement that I've been a part of actually pushed for, which is not a student-based budgeting, but budgeting based on equity. Everywhere else in the state of Illinois, they are actually adhering to the law that I helped pass. And we should be making sure that we're budgeting our schools based on need, not based on numbers. Those three things you can do right away, and also making sure that we're fighting for affordable housing. I said this already.
How would you define need,
No,
Brandon?
we
Or are
need
we
to
at time?
We're at time. We're going to give you 2 minutes to do a wrapping closing statement.
Well, look, thank you all again.
But we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, thank you so much for being patient with me today. Look, as a public school teacher, I've advocated for special education. I've advocated for affordable housing. I was on the front line as a hunger striker to keep Diet High School a neighborhood school. But everywhere there's been a fight, I've been there as a leader. Whether that was on the Southeast side, pushing back against General Iron, another lawsuit that this administration has been subject to, whether that's fighting with the Milagro workers, fighting alongside county workers who were demanding support services. You're going to have a mayor who is connected to the movement. I didn't get here by myself. You know the work that we have done together. We've struggled together over the last 20 years, and we have seen how politicians have attempted, and in some regard, they have hijacked our movement, claiming to be something that they're not. You want to know who the progressive champion is? Look who progressives are endorsing. Delia Ramirez, Carlos, Jeanette Taylor, Lakeisha Collins. These are individuals who are deeply connected. Independent political organizations all over this city see this as an opportunity for us to actually revive this city and put an end to the tale of two cities, where those who have get more and those who have little, more continues to get taken away from them. As mayor of Chicago, the table will be in my room, but the people get to set the agenda that's on that table. I humbly submit to your process and seek your endorsement to make sure that the progressive movement that we have struggled together alongside, shoulder to shoulder, bringing justice in this city, that we can actually prevail and have someone at the executive level that knows that no one should be too poor to live in one of the wealthiest cities in the wealthiest country at the wealthiest time in the history of the world.
Thank you
very
Brandon.
much.
That was great. We need to move on to Sophia.
Sophia King now. Hi.
Hi, Sophia.
3
Sorry,
minutes.
I wasn't unmuted. Good evening. How are you?
We're going to give you 3 minutes to tell us why you're running and what your campaign is about.
I appreciate that. So thank you for having me this evening. I appreciate the platform. Again, my name is Sophia King. Grew up in Evanston and Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi. Spent some of my formative years there. I think a lot of that benefits who I am today. However, I've lived in Chicago for the last 35 years. I'm a former teacher and educator. I helped start the Ariel School here in North Kenwood, and have been involved in the community for many years. Helped start a couple nonprofits, one particularly called Harriet's Daughters, whose mission is to increase jobs and employment and wealth in the African American community. Just really been hands-on, but over the last 6.5 years, I've been alderman of the 4th Ward. Listen, the city's in crisis. Crime is out of control. Tensions are high. There's even a larger gap now between the haves and the have-nots. There are so many groups at odds with this administration, the teachers, the police, my colleagues who are speaking with their feet. I just had a colleague announce a couple days ago that he's leaving. I think that brings us up to 16. We're losing institutional knowledge. not only from the legislative branch, but from the executive branch. We need a mayor that leads with collaboration and not confrontation. I've been able to show this over the last 6.5 years as alderperson. I led the fight for a $15 minimum wage that brought 400,000 individuals out of poverty and 100,000 into a livable wage. I've been able to show leadership in a collaborative way. I also lead the former Michael Reese development. It's now called Bronzeville Lakefront, which showed that you can have an upside in the community and with the developer. It's one of 4 striking developments in the city of Chicago, but it's the only one where you didn't hear about dissension and the community not getting what it needs. We got a $25 million commitment for schools. We got a commitment to affordable housing on site, which is good for a number of under-resourced communities and people, including people who are disabled. And so again, just showing how you can come together, collaborate, and get things done without dissension. I also we also need a mayor who understands that we need to bring the entire city together. After COVID, after social unrest and all the instability, we need to bring the entire city together and not just segregated parts of it. I represent from downtown to Hyde Park with Bronzeville in the middle. And the number one request I get because of all the crime that's out there is actually for more police presence. Now, they're not the only solution to crime. We know we also have to get to some of the root causes, which I'll talk about as well. I have a plan that talks about doing just that, bringing hundreds of millions of dollars into violence intervention as city councilman.
Yep. Cut you off and actually give you a question, which is define public safety for us. What's your definition of public safety? And talk about that.
I think public safety means different things to different people, but I think in general it means that you feel safe in your own home, that you feel safe on the streets, that you feel safe around mental health insecurities, that you feel safe around your homeless insecurities, that you feel safe about your health care. I mean, all of those things I think go into safety. And I think people come at that at different levels. But at a very basic level, that you feel you can walk outside, free from attacks, either verbally or physically. And that you feel safe in your environment.
We have a quick question from the audience. In terms of, you said something about we need more turnover in city council because that will bring in fresh people versus not having much turnover. What are your more specifics about that?
So I didn't say that. I said that, there's a lot of dissension between this administration and a number of entities, including my colleagues in city council. And that's why we're seeing a lot of turnover because of that dissension. And I'm saying, we've lost some institutional knowledge because of that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good clarity. Melissa?
What are your top 5 priorities for specific priorities for the city once you're elected?
Yeah, so I think safety has been the number one issue that people have talked about. I think a lot of things inform safety as well. I think that'd be my first 3 priorities. But education, I think, which also informs safety, is important. Jobs and economic development, which also inform safety, are important. Housing, again, which also inform safety, is important. So I think I mentioned 5 there, but those would be some of my top priorities around safety, education, jobs, economic development, and housing.
In order to get those 5 priorities, you need a leadership team. Do you
Sure.
have a leadership team that you could bring in on day one? And not only that, but that team could work with the other agencies like CPS and CTA?
Yeah, so collaboration, getting things done has been a hallmark of my leadership in the Fourth Ward over the last 6.5 years. Have I picked out, an entire leadership team to lead the city of Chicago so far? No. Are there people who, I've thought about during this journey? Certainly. But part of that, is bringing a leadership team is involving, the community and the city in that as well. That's been part of my collaboration. Like I was saying, for the Michael Reese development, former Michael Reese, now called Bronzeville Lakefront, we were the first to do what's called a community advisory council, where we brought leaders from across the city and locally to the table to talk about this striking development, which was different from the Obama Center, from the 78, from Lincoln Yards, where you saw a lot of dissension. So we brought people to the table who we knew would be interested in education and housing and development and different aspects of building a huge development. And we knew that there were some people who didn't agree with perhaps what the developer had to offer, but they were at the table. And we went in a room like grown people should, and we came out with what the New York Times is calling one of the most equitable developments in the country. Again, a $25 million commitment to education and schools, 20% affordable housing on site, commitment to 60% diversity, mainly coming from the neighborhood. So this neighborhood is in the Bronzeville or an African American community. So a commitment to that, a commitment to educating and bringing apprentices on board from nearby local schools. Dunbar is across the street from it, and so we've shown how you can collaborate, work together, bring people together, bring good people around you, let them lead with their expertise, like you would do in an administration, and then have a management process so that you can stay on focus with your top priorities. This administration, has lost track of that. When you talk about mental health being a priority, but yet not really sustaining the public mental health clinics that are out there. When you talk about violence intervention and safety being a priority, but not using the $85 million that the city council allocated to you and only using $5 million. It's really appalling, and not using the resources that we allocated for mental health either. As I was saying earlier, there's other, while I believe that police are part of the solution because they're our brothers and sisters and part of our community, we also should use other things to fight violence, and gun violence in particular. One of them is violence intervention. I have a huge plan around violence intervention and putting hundreds of millions of dollars into violence intervention. I also know that over 50% of calls to 911 are for nonviolent issues like mental health insecurities, like
What would you
homelessness.
do with the violence intervention money specifically?
Oh, great question. I'd love to answer that. I would literally spend $600 a week, not a month, $600 a week on the most vulnerable residents who are likely to be shot or get shot, um, and use that as an incentive for them to come into the legal economy. I would also provide their families and them with wraparound services. I would also provide them with job opportunities. That would be a responsibility, a part of the incentive with job training so that they could, have a skill. Most people don't want to look over their shoulders and be a victim. They want opportunity. So we need to, again, get at some of those root causes and providing their families with what they need, providing those wraparound services, bringing people from the community as part of that process. That would include pastors, that would include, social service agencies. And it's a holistic approach to that. Again, our violent criminals have to be held accountable. So police are part of that solution. They're not the only part of the solution. I would also bring alternative forms of responses to as well. Like I said, over 50% of calls to 911 are for issues like mental health insecurities. They're for issues like homeless insecurities and other issues around poverty. I helped put together a non-police response. There are several pilots in several districts throughout the city. There needs to be, we put money towards scaling that up, and this administration has not scaled it up. And so if you're
You're
going to
talking
say
about the mental health police
first,
support
yes,
model, correct?
yes. So
Yes.
as chair of the Progressive Caucus, I was a
So you don't
leader.
think that's
Sorry, go
Mhm.
ahead.
I want
Oh,
to.
so the current model, yeah, we'll let Melissa.
Yeah, because
Go
we
ahead.
need to move on because we have a very limited amount of time.
I
So,
understand.
we're trying to get as many questions as we can in. One of the things I wanted to bring up with you was it's historically it's very difficult for an older person to be um, elected mayor. That at most, I don't think anyone has been elected mayor since Anton Cermak, and he. So, why why do you think that is? And can you describe the strengths you'll bring to the mayor's office having been an alder person?
Yeah, I think, you've got a former alderperson as chair of the Cook County Board, and so I think that there aren't really barriers there. I think the individuals speak for themselves. I think, as an individual who's, running for mayor, I have a lot to um, to offer to the city of Chicago. First of all, I've been vetted. I'm tried and true over the last 6 years. There's nothing more personal than being and more close to the people than being an older person. I so in that way, I've been vetted, but I've also been a leader that has shown that I can collaborate with people and get things done. As I said, as the lead sponsor for the fight for $15 minimum wage, we sat down with people, we worked, we brought everybody to the table. That meant activists, that meant small business owners, that meant restaurant owners, that meant advocates in different parts of the city. We brought them together and we came out, with a model for a $15 raise hike that everybody is benefiting from. And so, I've been able to show my leadership in that way. We can't really chance again having somebody flying the plane and building it at the same time. We've tried that, and so kind of understanding how the sausage is made is important. So I understand how to work with my colleagues. I think it's a big mistake that this administration has made, having this adversarial relationship with people who share the same constituent base. We share the same constituent base. And also, older people really understand specifically and are elected to advocate on behalf of their constituencies. They need to be listened to. And I know that that's something that I will bring. And so I will seek to decentralize power. This administration has sought to centralize it, and really a lot, as we see, is just not getting done. And so I think involving elected officials who were chosen by their communities to represent them is, empowering, and we should help. Do that because again, we share the same constituent base, and so it would behoove the leader of the city of Chicago to listen to those people locally who have been elected and to work with them on issues, and to work with them on issues that they may disagree with. I think a lot of things that have happened over the last several years, we've had to fight over issues that weren't just there, that weren't really even an issue. For instance, on lowering the speed limit, the mayor put us in this false fight between equity and safety. And we didn't have to do that. We could have redistributed cameras, red light cameras, so that they were more equitably distributed, so that they weren't off the backs of poor Black and brown people. I had colleagues, and including myself, who could have had a camera put on Michigan Avenue or a camera in Lincoln Park. And not only could we, and in safer areas. So not only if we had come together and talked about that, we could have had more safety, more equity, and more money. And so, these
Sophia?
are issues around leadership that I will bring to the city.
Yeah. How would you improve Chicago Transit Authority from what its current state is right now?
Yeah, I think first of all,
This is our final question, and then we'll give you 2 minutes. So
thank you very much. I think first of all, we need to have a regional transportation system. The federal government sees us as part of the RTA and Metra, fighting for resources. For instance, I know for the fact that we got maybe 29 million or so to electrify our buses. City like Boston, I think, got like 140 million. New York got, even more than that. Obviously, they have more people, but we're fighting for some of the similar resources. We need to come together really and have a regional answer so that we can use economies of scale. I thought it was a great idea, to have the same rates on Metra as you have on CTA, so that we can expand and have a regional approach, use economies of scales, because it is going to be expensive to really have a globally transportation system that really serves all people, especially under-resourced communities like ones that
So
I've
you
been
mean
involved.
regional in Cook County or regional with other cities? Just
No,
a real quick
regional in the county.
answer because
Yes, so the
we need to go out.
RTA,
Okay.
represents, the county as well as the city.
Right.
But we're segregated into 3 different entities. And
Yes.
I would suggest that if we bring those together and acted like a regional transportation system, that we could make better use of money and really be
I
a
have
world-class
to cut
transportation
you
system.
off because we are way over time.
I
So you have
understand.
2 minutes to wrap everything up. 2 minutes. And
Yeah,
we'll cut you
or
off.
very quick.
Right.
Just
Well,
talk about your
I will try
campaign
and do it, very, as I said, we need somebody that can speak to all Chicago and still bring wildly disenfranchised Black and brown communities much release and resources. We need somebody who can lead with blended, targeted law enforcement and add robust wraparound services to that. We need someone who can uplift the police and hold them accountable. We need someone with the sensibility to know that we can't do it all alone. We need someone who can bring stakeholders at the federal, the state, the county, the city, the chief judge's office together, someone willing to roll up their sleeves, who has lived experience, who's tried and true, and someone who'll be willing to do the hard work to address real systemic issues, as well as addressing the emergency of now, which is the violent crime. I am the person who can do this. I can bring us together. I can address these issues. And I understand that an equitable Chicago is a strong Chicago, and a strong Chicago is a safe Chicago. So go to sophiaforchicago.com. Please join our movement. Our message is resonating throughout the city. We would love to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman King.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thanks for
Great.
having me this evening. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Sophia. It's been a pleasure. And we're going to move on to Cam Buckner, the next candidate.
Hi,
Hi, Cam.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
we can.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
We're going to give
Thank
you
you.
3 minutes to talk about your run for mayor.
Fantastic. Well, first off, I want to thank you all for this opportunity and for allowing us to speak a little bit about ourselves and about our platform and our visions for the city of Chicago. My name is Cam Buckner, and I am a son of Chicago. I was born and raised here in the city on the south side of Chicago. My mother spent 3+ decades as a Chicago public school teacher. My father was in law enforcement for 2.5 decades. I'm a CPS graduate. I did my undergraduate work at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, and I went to law school at DePaul. I've spent a number of years in the public sector, working for 6 years for Senator Durbin in Washington, D.C., running a nonprofit, working as a senior advisor to the mayor of New Orleans, and spending the last 4 years as a member of Illinois' General Assembly in the House of Representatives. I'm running for mayor of Chicago because Chicago can't wait another moment to be fair, to be safe, to be just, and to be equitable. I'm running for mayor of Chicago because what we're doing right now is not working. And I have a real uh, passion for the people of Chicago, for this city. I've said this many times that this is not a campaign, it's a movement, and it's not a political platform. It's a love letter from a little boy to the city that he grew up in and the city that he loves. I really do believe that Chicago's brightest days are ahead of us, but I think first we've got to get these dark days behind us. And so I'm here today and in this campaign for the last 8 months to talk to the people of Chicago about my vision, my thoughts, my plans, how to make us safe and just and equitable, and put us at the forefront and the tip of the spear on recovery, so we can be the envy of cities around the country. And so I'm happy to share that platform and more of my thoughts about the city with you in this conversation.
Okay. Why do you want to be mayor at this time in the city's history when we are in so much financial crisis, when there are so many issues going on right now?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So you'll hear a lot of doom and gloom, right? You'll hear a lot of conversations about the things that are going on in the city that are untoward, the things that are going on in the city that are scary, and the things that are going on in the city that makes us feel like we need a better plan for tomorrow. And I think that these are all really good reasons to run for mayor. But what also is true is that I'm running for mayor because I see so much opportunity. I see a Chicago, not some nostalgic version of what we used to be, but really giving us a chance to be the city that we've always deserved to be. I think we are at a pivotal point and an inflection point in the history of this city, and we need real leadership to get it right. People continue to say that Chicago is going to go the way of Detroit if we don't figure out what's going on here. I don't believe that we'll ever be Detroit. But I do believe that there's a possibility that we can be, and this is no rub on Philadelphia, but a city like Philadelphia who has historical significance, that has not figured out how to um, live in the new world, right? And so we've got a lot of work to do. And I'm running for mayor because I love Chicago. This is a tough time, and tough times require tough leaders.
Cam, off the top of your head, give us 3 specific programs you would like to implement when you walk in as mayor to improve city services.
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you for asking that. First off, listen, we're in 2023 now, right? We have so much opportunity to use technology in a way that can help Chicagoans understand what's going on. First off, we got to fix the technology that already exists, right? We have trackers for our buses and our trains that are not authentic, that are not right, and don't give the real contemporaneous messages there, right? And so we got to first off fix those things that are wrong. But I think also something that can happen on day one as a new mayor is that, listen, number one, I've talked about this. I will get rid of the gang database. I think it has not made Chicagoans safer. It has not made given our law enforcement personnel an easier way to do their job, and it's really put us, I think, in a backwards facing position, right? And so we got to do that. But I've also said is that when we talk about streetscapes, sidewalks, bike lanes. I've talked about implementing a safety and accessibility score for every single CDOT project that is worked on in the city before our folks start digging in the ground, right? Uh, that's something that would be extremely helpful. And the last thing I'll say is that this and the removal of lead pipes. That is a city service. It needs to be a city service. Unfortunately, the city has told residents that it's their issue. But the truth of the matter is that we know we have more lead service lines in the city than anyone else in the country because it was a city code requirement up until 1986, right? So this is a city issue. And when we talk about city services, the city needs to be the one to go out and do this, right? And so we need to put chop the city up into zones. We need to triage. We need to get this work. We need to also create a jobs program by doing this to make sure that we train young women and men who want to do this work, who are Chicagoans. And I think that this is not just a city services issue. It's not just a utilities issue, but this also has something to do with the violence and the mental health issues that are going on in our city.
Can you, pinging off of that, can you talk about what your definition of public safety is and how that should be addressed in the city?
For sure. Thank you, Melissa. I think much too often we talk about public safety in a very umbrella, nebulous way, right? And what happens is we end up talking about police and law enforcement when we're talking about public safety. When I got a little echo here. When real public safety is so much more than that, right? I think the law enforcement apparatus that exists in this city, in any city in the country, is really about public security, right? How do you respond when violent things happen? How do you respond when you, unfortunately, like my family has been out too many times, been the victim of street violence in this city, and you want somebody to bring justice to your family when you lost a loved one, right? That is the public security portion of it. But real public safety is not law enforcement. True public safety is all of the other agencies and departments in this city that should be working in concert to make sure that we have a quality of life that we deserve, right? So that's better schools, that's more affordable housing stock, that's making sure that our parks and our libraries all are working to make sure that our young people have something to do, and that our response to our young people is not, we're going to give you a curfew, right? To me, public safety is creating a space and a network and opportunities in a city where we don't have to rely on law enforcement in order to make us quote unquote safe.
You've talked about improving public safety around biking. Do you want to give a quick blurb about that?
Yeah, well, first off, I'll say this. Ray, I believe that Chicago is the greatest city in the world. What I also know is, as I travel the world and I see other cities like Paris and Barcelona, and their ability to get their people around from point A to point B to point C seamlessly, whether it's public transit or whether it's biking, they are the envy of the world. And I think it really should be us. When I look at how quickly Paris has tripled their bike ridership by making safe infrastructure available to the people, to Parisians, I think we could really be doing the same thing here. We have the space, right? And so I have committed to not just creating a connected, protected bike grid in Chicago. And to be very clear, when I say protected, I mean actual physical barriers, not flexi posts and not paint, to entice folks to bike and to keep bikers safe. We got to figure out how to be a city that is world-class and multimodal when it comes to the way people get around town. Streets are not just for cars.
How would you integrate biking with the CTA? And then after that, how would you make the CTA run better?
Well, yeah. So listen, I think that there is, if we plot out, where we're putting our bike lanes, we plot out what once again, a connected, protected bike grid with 10% of our streets connected, once again, and protected in the way of a bike lane. But also we look at how our bus routes are running, what the end mile looks like for transit users, how you get from your home to the bus stop or your home to the train station. There's a way to coordinate all of that. The problem is that we've often operated in silos, right? And so There was a CTA bus route redesign plan that was put out years ago that said that we need to figure out how to rewrite these buses and make sure that they make the most sense for the people in Chicago. We have not done that, right? And so, as mayor of Chicago, I will call on the head of CTA to begin that process, but also to work with CDOT and the work that we've done for bike safety to make sure that all of this is working in concert and in conjunction, so you can create a better transit experience for everybody in the city. And CTA, that's my jam, Ray. I think I'm the probably the person in this race who is the most frequent CTA user. I have been for 30 plus years.
Public safety and CTA.
Yeah, so look, big deal. So first thing,
how do we improve the perception?
And I'm glad you said it that way, because I think a lot of it is perception, and perception matters, right? People are not going to get on a train system or on a bus system that they feel is not safe. They're not going to ride when they think that they have a high propensity or high chance of having something negative happen to them. I think about the way I thought about the New York subway in the 80s and the 90s, and it's what people think about when you think about the L now, right? And so I think first off, we got to use what we have, better tools for a better fight. We've got 80,000 connected. We have 80,000 surveillance cameras within our system now. They're not connected. They don't talk to each other. There's no kind of universal mainframe. The red line doesn't know what the blue line, what's happening on the blue line, and vice versa, right? And so I think first we got to find a way to connect what we already have. I think secondly, I've talked a lot about the CTA ambassadors program, making sure we bring back people in those spaces to be able to not to arrest folks and not to do those type of things, but to have that presence, right? There are people who will tell you that safety is down because ridership is down, but I'm going to tell you that ridership is down because safety is down, right? And I think that they go hand in hand. The other thing I will say that we have to do is we've seen cities around the world be able to put in an anonymous text program, right? Where I can say either somebody is doing something that's illegal on this train, or somebody on this train seems to need mental health services, or somebody on this train seems to need housing services, or this train is smoking. It may be on fire. I've had that happen 3 times in the last 2 months, right? This is rudimentary.
Okay, I think
it's not a good.
No. Cam, let's Melissa chime in.
I'm gonna change the subject radically because we have a very limited amount of time and a lot to talk about. But from a question from the comments, you have received money from people who are big players in the education reform movement, and so we wanted to get your opinion about that movement and what you think public education should look like, and what changes you would make in the system now.
Yeah, I'm not sure what contributions that person is talking about. If they want to get more into depth, I'm happy to directly answer that piece of it.
Okay,
but what I will say,
I was cutting that for clarity, but the question says you received big contributions from James and Paula Crown, who are major donors in the education reform movement.
Listen, I look at the Crowns as Chicagoans who want a better city, right? And they've never done it to my mayoral campaign. So, but with that being said, listen, I am a CPS kid, all right? I am K through 12 CPS. My mother spent 30 years in the district. My little sister is currently a teacher in the district. My oldest sister is a principal in the district. This runs through me. No one has more Chicago public school bona fides than I do. And as a product of this district, I think it's super important. You can look at my education plan. It's laid out on my website. I think I may be one of the only candidates who has wrote out a complete and comprehensive education plan. I talk a lot about making sure that we have that we are not just getting the resources from Springfield and Washington to make sure that our schools are up to par. I've been fighting in Springfield like hell to make sure that the evidence-based funding formula does not just stop when Springfield gives money to CPS, but CPS is actually giving that money out to the schools based on need and not based on population, right? Because we starved our schools out for a very long time. So I've carried that legislation in Springfield, and I'm hoping to get it passed in the next couple of months before I take the oath of office as mayor, if I could be so honored by the people of Chicago. What I've also talked about is a social worker, a librarian, um, uh, uh, excuse me, and a nurse in every single school in this district. What I've talked about is creating real school communities where our young people, especially those who live in communities that have been left behind, especially those who are English learners, and especially those who are in the special education program, are not being pushed to the side like we've seen much too often in this district. Like I've seen as a student in this district, over 25 years ago, and much of that has not changed. And so, when you talk about education reform, what I've been very clear about is that the work that I've done in the state legislature and then the work that I will do in City Hall is specifically for the people of Chicago. And I can remind the folks on this call that the fight for an elected school board was 147 years in the making, and I was one of the champions in Springfield and was able to get that over the hump. I carried the trailer bill that put a moratorium on school closings in Chicago. That was my legislation. And so my track record is very clear on that.
Okay, so we have another question from the comments that I'm going to ask you about. Please differentiate how you would work with City Council versus how Mayor Lori Lightfoot does.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I've said this a million times before. The mayor has treated the City Council like they are her employees. And I think that is the wrong way to gain traction with a legislative body of 50 people. The first thing I will say is that I'm much different than the mayor when it comes to getting things done. My reputation in Springfield and beyond is somebody who can bring people to the table and find a way to yes instead of getting stuck at no. I maintain that's who I am, and I will bring that with me to City Hall. What also is true is that the reason the mayor doesn't have a great relationship with the city council, is that she doesn't know the city very well. I understand on the granular level these communities. I represent today 10 different aldermanic wards, right? So 20% of the aldermanic wards in the city are currently in my state rep district. I go from the South Shore down near the Indiana border, way up to the Gold Coast. Right. And so I understand that each community is nuanced, is different, and I will be able to work with aldermen in that space. And just for the record, when you look at my current state rep district, where I've been very successful, is bringing aldermen together who may not even think the same on certain things. If you know the city council, I've got people like Brendan Riley and Jeanette Taylor, people like Michelle Smith and Michelle Harris. It's a big difference there, right? And so I've shown the ability to be able to do that. The last thing I will say is that this has to not just be about personality, it has to be institutionalized. This city needs a city charter. We are the only large city in the country who does not have a governing document that tells us what's right and what's wrong, a constitution of sorts. We have operated off a custom, which has created a situation where alders and the mayor can fight in a way that's detrimental to the city. I've talked about giving the city council their own parliamentarian. I've talked about letting the city council choose their own leadership like we do in the legislature in Springfield, and giving them the opportunity to figure out who their committee chairs are.
Okay, we are down, and you have 2 minutes left to talk and give your final wrapping up, what you want us to know that we didn't ask you statement.
Well, first off, once again, thank you for this opportunity. I am fresh off the road in Springfield, where I'm extremely proud to talk about the fact that not only did we expand rights for those who may be seeking abortions, not only did we create space for folks who wanted to take sick leave in the state, but we just banned assault weapons, right? One of only 9 states in this country to do so. I say that because to me, this race is about rhetoric versus results. I've made promises to the people of Chicago as a state rep for many of you, and I will continue to bring those promises to fruition as your mayor. When it came to the most comprehensive and consequential clean energy legislation in the history of this country, I helped lead that fight, helped negotiate that, and got that done. When it came to taking on the gun lobby and successfully banning ghost guns in the state of Illinois, I was the lead sponsor on that. I led those negotiations. I got that done. When it came to actually doing the work to reform the criminal legal system, I was beat up this last summer as an architect of the Safety Act and eliminating cash bail. This is real work that matters, not just in Chicago, not just in Illinois, but around the country. People are watching. And so I've made promises. I kept them. And I want to bring that same pragmatic, solution-driven work to the 5th floor of City Hall because Chicago deserves it. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I don't want to be mayor of Chicago. I want to be mayor for Chicago because we deserve that. And so I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. We really
Thanks,
appreciate you.
and this was getting this safety legislation for guns done from the beginning of December and getting it signed now has been an incredible act and really deserves appreciation. So I just want to throw that in there. And I think we're done. So I just want to say thanks for everybody that were here. And our next meeting is February 8th, and hopefully at the fireside, but we'll see where we go from there. So, Joe, for the happy ending.
That's a really loaded term, Ray. Anyway, but again, we want to thank everybody who has watched this stream. We want to remind people that the stream will be available here on our Facebook page. We understand there were some people early on that were trying to track it down, and we apologize for that confusion, but hopefully you will have found it. Also, thanks to our friends at 99 Perspectives, this forum will be rebroadcast on CAN TV. You will have to consult them for the listings and times. By the way, you can also still watch the NDFA streams on the police commissioners for the North Side, so you feel free to do that. And finally, and the reason I'm here right now at the end so that we can trim it off so that we don't have to worry about it on CAN TV, I am here to make an appeal for a virtual tip if you like what we did. 99 Perspectives are great, but they are trying to earn it just like we are trying to bring you these meetings, bring you these candidates, bring you all of the back and forth as best we can. So if you go to Act Blue and look for Northside Democracy for America, you can find the link there. Or right now on our Facebook page, you will see the Act Blue link. If you can, we would appreciate it. Like us on Facebook, pass your email along so we can put you on our email list for our next in-person meeting. And if Ray and Melissa are on, we can bring them back on to do one big collective thank you, good night, and we'll see you in March. Yeah. Bye.
Yes.